All right, hey, Mr. Drew Robinson here. I'm going to go over the Battle of Guilford Courthouse. That's the what I chose for the assignment here with Liberty University. So Guilford Courthouse, it's in North Carolina, and what's that's so significant to me because that's where I live at is in North Carolina. So I'll try to go through this fairly quickly. Now, the role in the Revolutionary Era. So it's the last major engagement in the Carolinas in the Southern strategy. As you can see, the date there, March 15th, 1781. And what is significant is that even though Charles Cornwallis scored a victory for the British Army, it wasn't a real victory. It was known as a Pyrrhic victory over Nathaniel Greene, the rebels, because they suffered a lot of casualties. After this, Charles Cornwallis will abandon the Carolinas and go back into Virginia, leading to Yorktown. All right, so there's some different interpretations here. John R. Mass, and I put at the end of this, there's going to be the citations you'll see. But in his book, The Battle of Guilford Courthouse, he is saying that he said it was basically the definitive turning point in the Carolinas. He said that the British had controlled the Carolinas, even though they'd suffered losses at Cowpen, or not at Cowpens, sorry, Kings Mountain, and or yeah, it's at Cowpens too, but at Kings Mountain in North Carolina, but they had actually taken over and captured Charlotte. So he's saying that really it's the turning point. Okay. On the flip side, in Clash of the Carolinas Military History magazine, they wrote an article there that I'm citing that Cornwallis was not in control. The British were not in control, but what he needed was a big victory to sweep up that loyalist support because that's the whole reason the British went into the South. If you remember, it was trying to get some loyalist support. They thought it was a loyalist hotbed. And so what ended up happening was even though Cornwallis got a big victory, it was a Pyrrhic victory, he lost a lot of casualties. London, they look at all these casualties lost, and it's almost like the United States in Vietnam. All right, no, okay, this is not worth it. The juice is not worth the squeeze right here. So they're starting to be put on pressure on Cornwallis to, hey, you got to do something big here, get a big victory, not just these Pyrrhic victories. So another thing is that the battle is considered one of the largest in the Southern Theater, and remember the last engagement in the Southern Theater. So let's look at the battlefield now, the preservation. The city of Greensboro, so you may have heard of Greensboro, is in Guilford County, and it was established, some, what was that, 27 years after the battle. So with Greensboro being established and, growing out, getting bigger, little attention was given to the preservation of the battlefield. In 1882, this guy, David Schnick, he was a railroad magnate. He came in to build a railroad, but he's very interested in history. And so what he did was he basically wanted to preserve the battlefield on his own. As you see that quote there's very little interest in it. All right, out of 3,000 people in Greensboro, he says he couldn't find half a dozen who knew about the battle. So he purchased the land. Ultimately, Congress gets involved, and it becomes the first national battlefield preserved by Congress. Then it's turned over from the War Department. It started out in the War Department, and in 1933, the National Park Service, created under that New Deal by FDR, takes over. So if I was going to take my class on a field trip, it's only 85 miles away, hour and a half away. So I also coach baseball. So we travel farther than that to play baseball. One thing that's interesting to me is I've lived in North Carolina, like I said, my entire life, other than the 5 years I was in the Marine Corps. I lived in California and I was deployed and stuff. But I've never been to this battlefield. Okay, and it's not that far from where I live, and so maybe I could take my students there. That'd be interesting for them to go there and see a piece of history. These at the end here, these are just some of the citations. So I use the battlefield website right there. So some things they do there is they do reenactments at the battlefield. They have tours and stuff. So I may just go take a trip on my own. There's the two articles I talked about, and then I actually looked at some of the background on the History Channel as well.